Hey everybody, it's Shaman Sister Sin, and you're listening to the Meditations and More podcast brought to you by Transrelational Healing, ShamanSpiritCenter.com, and LittleShaman.org. That's me, the Little Shaman. Today, I wanted to talk to you about something that many people might not realize, and that is that for all of their reputation for being confrontational and aggressive, narcissists are often better described as cowards. The definition of coward as a noun is a person who lacks the courage to do or endure dangerous or unpleasant things. As an adjective, the definition is excessively afraid of danger or pain. Narcissists, perhaps more than the majority of people, definitely lack the courage to endure unpleasant things, and to say that they're excessively afraid of danger or pain is an almost laughable understatement. It is beyond excessive, venturing in many cases into paranoid or even delusional. In many ways, these are some of the most terrified people on the planet. Virtually everything narcissists do is an attempt to avoid danger or pain. Now, this is not so different from everybody else in the sense that everybody attempts to avoid these things to some degree. It's a huge part of how the human brain functions. It's basic programming. Your brain is designed to keep you safe. That's why if you put your hand on a hot burner, your brain sends a pain signal to let you know that you need to move your hand. But like so many other things, this normal human programming becomes twisted and distorted and exaggerated beyond all recognition in the pathologically narcissistic personality. How they react to these emotions can vary, but even if the observed reaction seems small, the emotion itself is usually enormous. Where others are annoyed, narcissists are red DEFCON 9 raging. Where others are mildly upset, narcissists are totally hysterical. Where others feel somewhat let down, narcissists are betrayed on an unimaginable level. Where others are cautious, narcissists are utterly terrified. Because they are so afraid of confronting danger or pain, then, they see these things or the potential for these things everywhere. The reality is that most of a narcissist's behavior is fear driven, and this is why. Their very orientation to the world appears to be fear based. Many people believe it's power and control based, and it is to a degree, but this is largely because they fear not having power and control. The force that drives this seeking of power and control in narcissists is fear. Fear is a big motivator in human behavior. When people are afraid, they often act impulsively or without consideration for other people. For example, we have all heard awful stories of people being trampled and crushed when something happens that scares a large group of people. Humans will stampede like any other group of mammals that becomes frightened. When people are afraid, our brains are focused on survival to the total exclusion of other considerations. This is what we see at work in the narcissistic personality structure. Their excessive fear and lack of coping abilities translates into survival oriented behavior. An expression of this is the consuming preoccupation with seeking power and seeking control that we see in narcissists. Fear of not having enough of something, what is often called a scarcity mindset, causes people to try to get as much as they can of anything, maybe even of everything. Some people have a scarcity mindset regarding food, for example, or money, or both. As we discussed in the episode of the show entitled The Narcissistic Harem, a study in pathological resource management, narcissists have a scarcity mindset about a lot of things, but perhaps most important is power and control. Why? Fearing they don't have enough, which means other people can therefore control them. Pathologically narcissistic people are dependent personalities. They legitimately need other people to survive, and this causes them to be dependent whether they want to be or not. Because they're dependent, because they require the participation of other people in various ways in order to function, and because they have no real ability to control themselves, narcissists often feel controlled by external forces and by other people. They made me do that. They made me feel that way. They made me react like that. They made me think those things. They made me say those things. This lack of power over their own selves creates even more unreasonable fear because narcissists are very afraid of being tricked, manipulated, or otherwise taken advantage of in some way by other people. Deeply afraid, in fact, probably because they also fear that they will not be able to see this trickery coming, therefore they won't be prepared for it and they won't be able to protect themselves from it. This creates a lot of anxiety in the narcissist's inner world because there doesn't seem to ever be a question of if the betrayal or harm is going to come from the other person or the other people, only when. And waiting on that is very difficult, it's very stressful. This is partly what's behind the provocative types of behaviors that you see in many narcissists. They're trying to rid themselves of that anxiety, of that fear, by forcing the situation to happen. Sometimes this will be expressed as immediately jumping to ending the relationship or the situation when you attempt to confront them about something, even something that's small. For narcissists, any wrinkle or flaw is intolerable, and they assume that everybody operates the same way. They know, they are sure that you are going to betray and abandon and reject them anyway, so they're trying to beat you to it. That way it can't surprise them, and they're not going to be caught off guard by it. They can be prepared, which seems to be something else that they fear excessively, being caught off guard and things taking them by surprise. For a narcissist, not to know something feels very dangerous. It means that you're not in control. People can take advantage of you or have one up on you somehow because they know things that you don't. It's one of the reasons so many of them have so much trouble admitting that they don't know something. Narcissists are also afraid that if they don't control other people or situations, they're not going to get what they need from either one of these things. They have very limited, finite resources, and because of that, they're afraid to invest these in things that are not going to pay off. Due to that, they attempt to control all situations that they are involved in to a greater or lesser degree, usually a greater one if they can get away with it. Narcissists generally fear other people to a pretty severe degree. They fear that other people are going to control them, to harm them, to change them, to convince them, to brainwash them. They appear to view the world as an inherently scary and unsafe place where every single person in it is out to use them or do them dirty or harm them somehow. They trust no one, drop their guard for no one. If you think about it, this is one of the major struggles in any relationship with any narcissist. They simply do not trust you and they never will. That word is not in their dictionary. It's just not a thing. We can see proof of this in the way that they look at things like honesty, respect, repairing relationships, and so much more. A very good example is how they tend to view manipulating other people. If narcissists are honest, and sometimes they are, many of them will admit to perceiving themselves to be smarter than other people. They often believe that they see things that other people don't see, that they know, quote, the truth about how people really are, this kind of stuff. The truth is, they are usually just seeing their own immorality, paranoia, and distrust reflected back to them by other people. But when it comes to manipulating others, they tend to think that stupid people get what they deserve. If that person could not see through the BS, that's their problem and they get what they get. However, the reality is that manipulating people has nothing to do with intelligence. It requires no intelligence whatsoever on the part of the manipulator, and the level of intelligence on the part of the person being manipulated doesn't matter at all because intelligence has nothing to do with it. The reality is, what narcissists have done in this situation is betrayed that person's trust. Intelligence has nothing to do with that. But this way of looking at it is not going to occur to narcissists because trust as a reality or even as a concept doesn't occur to them. They just look at the situation and think that the other person is an idiot for believing them. Beyond the obvious but unconscious self-loathing that's evident in that mindset, right? Because people are fools for trusting the narcissist or for not seeing that the narcissist is a bad person, etc. That's self-loathing. We can also see that the concept of trust is just not something this person considers or even understands in any way. Because narcissists cannot trust, they cannot relax. They therefore cannot have real relationships with other people. Because if you can't trust somebody, there is no relationship. Probably the biggest thing narcissists are afraid of, though, is themselves. Narcissists fear who they really are, how they really feel, how things really are, how others really see them, how others really feel about them, just the entire actuality of themselves and their lives. This fear, in many ways, drives everything. It's why they create a false self. It's why they lie. It's why they perform. It's why they gaslight. It's why they are at literal war with reality in general. As we discussed in the episode of the show that has the same name, narcissists are at war with reality. Reality itself is an aggression to narcissists. They find it offensive, upsetting, triggering, hurtful. It angers them, it demeans them, it exposes them, not just to other people, but to themselves. And that is worst of all. The real audience for the act that narcissists are putting on is not other people. Other people are the props that narcissists use to make the act more believable to the real audience, the only audience that actually matters, themselves. It is a performance of one, for one, by one. Everything narcissists do is an exercise in trying to make sure that they avoid confrontation with reality. That's what all of it is about. The lying, the manipulation, the gaslighting, everything. And that is perhaps evidence of the biggest cowardice of all. This person is so afraid of who and what they really are and in such denial of it and so unable to deal with it that they have created an entire different reality to exist in instead and spend literally all of their time trying to ensure that there is no collision with any actuality because they can't tolerate that and they don't know how to deal with it. For all of their reputation for being so confrontational and aggressive, for their very deserved reputation for attacking other people, narcissists very often fear direct confrontation. They try to avoid it as much as possible, even while they are attacking others. It sounds ridiculous, but think about it. They refuse to listen. They don't respond in any real way to anything they do happen to hear. They deflect every single thing that's being said or twist it into something that they actually can deal with better. They won't acknowledge anything at all, even during confrontational situations. Everything is just non-stop denial and avoidance. That is why nothing can ever get resolved. Not only can you never explain what really happened or whatever because they refuse to listen to you, but even if you try to give them what they want, they will often refuse to take it. This is not just an attempt on their part to keep what they think is the power position, it's an expression of fear. Narcissists are that afraid to listen to you or to accept your conciliatory measure because they're afraid that if they give even an inch, this means that you are somehow controlling or tricking them. Think about the things that they say in these situations, and you will see that very clearly. Even if they wanted to believe in the things that you're saying, they're too rigid and, more importantly, too afraid. The only reason they're attacking most of the time is because they believe you did something to them anyway, even though you might not know that, and even though you might not know what it is that they're upset about or why they're so upset. It's still the only reason. So the way they see it, you force them into the confrontation in the first place. They didn't attack you, they're defending themselves. Remember, reality itself is an aggression to this person. This means that simply acknowledging reality is a literal attack against them. It's an aggression, it's an act of war. And so, war it shall be. This is why no contact is so strongly recommended in these situations. Narcissists are cowards, and cowards are dangerous. A coward fears exposure more than anything, even death. Narcissists are more afraid of themselves and of reality, of actuality, than they will ever be of you or of anything else. And because of that, they will do just about anything to prevent exposure of themselves to themselves. This makes them dangerous, both purposely and simply as a matter of function. What does that mean? It means that whether a narcissist is actively and intentionally trying to hurt other people or not, and they often are, just being around them and being gaslit relentlessly, forced continually into an alternate reality is very harmful to people. There doesn't even have to be any malicious or purposeful action or intent, although there often is, because just being around them, the way that they operate and how they function, is dangerous in and of itself. That's very important to understand because it underscores why this cannot ever work. You live in reality and they don't, period. They not only don't live there, they find it threatening and dangerous. They will do anything to avoid it, including attempt to control or even destroy everyone else's perception of it. That's it. You will terrorize and terrify and threaten and hurt and injure and attack them hundreds of times a day without even realizing it because you live in reality and they don't. You report reality as a result of your very existence, and they cannot deal with that. Now you have betrayed them. This cannot be overstated, and most people don't realize how deep this really goes. This is not a benign and harmless fantasy that someone's indulging in. This is almost literally life or death to the pathologically narcissistic personality structure. Collapse of the alternate tolerable reality leads to collapse of the personality structure itself. It's that important, it's that simple, and it's that impossible to avoid. And this is not a harmless, benign person that you're dealing with here either. This is an emotional terrorist who demands, requires that everyone around them perform according to their narration of reality and punishes people viciously when they do not. This is a person who is so irrationally terrified of reality that people who live in it are considered enemy aggressors. This is a delusional toddler who is willing to make war over comments such as, "Hey, can you pick up your shoes, please?" Remember, though, being a coward does not make somebody less dangerous. In some ways, narcissists in particular are actually more dangerous because of that, for the reasons that we've laid out here today. Even more dangerous still is the fact that often they might not even be aware of their fear and cowardice or completely refuse to acknowledge it at all. This can result in the expressions of rage we often see anytime fear is felt by narcissists because it makes them feel vulnerable and weak, which narcissists both despise and fear deeply. Yes, narcissists fear fear. If you're weak, then people can take advantage of you. So, because of that, they have to react to any fear they feel in such a way that dispels the feelings of weakness and fear. Unfortunately, many times the only way they can do that is by behaving abusively toward other people in some way. This is one of the dynamics we usually see at play in domestic and family violence, for example. The abuser is using violence as a way to assert power and control so that they can get rid of that weak feeling and combat the fear that they're feeling. In the most extreme cases of domestic and family violence, the abuser cannot tolerate the fear and the weakness inspired in them by the loss of control over the victim or the situation, so they go to extreme lengths to deal with that. People are confused by this sometimes because if the abuser doesn't want to lose the victim, why kill them? They've still lost them, and now they've lost them permanently because now they're gone forever. But this happens because it's not about losing the victim as a person. It's about losing control over the victim and the situation and what that says to the abuser about themselves. This is absolutely intolerable for them. A very simple way to understand the sort of messaging here is, oh, you thought you were going to do this, or that you were just going to say that, or you just going to go here, or you just going to leave me? Yeah, no, you're not. I'm in control. I have the power. I'm not afraid of anything because I don't need to be afraid if I'm in control. I'm not weak or vulnerable here. You are. You don't run me. I'm not afraid of you. You need to be afraid of me. You don't take advantage of me. I'm the boss. I have the power. This is how I feel the safest. That is the mindset of pathologically narcissistic personalities in a nutshell. It's the way they operate boiled down as much as it can possibly be. They are cowards who cannot deal with life or reality or anything in any real way. It makes them predictable in some ways, unpredictable in others, and extremely dangerous either way. If you are dealing with a pathologically narcissistic person, calling them out on their cowardice, probably not a good idea. To this person, being a coward means that you are weak and afraid, the two things they despise and fear most of all, probably because it's such a huge part of who and what they really are. But you can know it, and if you didn't before, now you do. It helps to keep the reality of narcissists in perspective to remember that this is a person so limited and just terrified that the only way they can deal with life at all is to play pretend and imagine that they're somebody other than who they actually are. It's like a kid. The assertion that they are anything else, anything more than that, is just buying into the act. Don't. Be careful, be cautious, be smart. Know the reality of the danger here, but make sure you see this for what it really is. And what it really is not very much at all. I hope that clears a few things up for you. As always, I look forward to your comments, questions, and suggestions, so please keep those coming. I take appointments online, over the phone, via text, via messenger, via email, through Zoom, and through Skype for clients worldwide. So if you're interested in speaking with me one-on-one, you can visit littleshaman.org to do that. I teach workshops, seminars, classes, courses, and clinics throughout the year. So if you are interested in seeing what we're running this month, you can visit littleshaman.org to do that. I have several books in publication that you can find on Amazon and littleshaman.org. And if you are interested in joining our support group with access to exclusive content, weekly support meetings, and more, you can visit littleshaman.org to do that as well. You've been listening to the Meditations and More podcast brought to you by Transrelational Healing, shamanspiritcenter.com, and littleshaman.org. That's me, Little Shaman. May the Great Spirit bless you. Have a beautiful day.
If you've been struggling through dealing with or recovering from an unhealthy relationship with a narcissist or other toxic personality, the Little Shaman has a catalog of over 500 YouTube videos designed to support your journey from discovery to recovery. You can also find additional resources on the Little Shaman website, including tools, courses, workshops, a support group with weekly meetings, and one-on-one appointments with the Little Shaman that are open to clients worldwide. There's even an AI chatbot built and trained exclusively by the Little Shaman using her work that can answer questions 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. For more information, visit littleshaman.org. You can listen to The Little Shaman wherever you find your favorite podcasts.